Landing party down, location mysterious. Wanna rock this con like my man James Tiberius. Jesse and Marina, they're mad clever like the Negus. Gonna guide you through the scenes, beam from London to Las Vegas. Where to go, how to dress, when to sleep, who to see. Celebs not to miss, Sardis Wong and SMG. Star Trek into awesome, build some memories at last. Set the proper course, the Shore Leave Podcast. Boom.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 50th episode of Shore Leave, your Star Trek Convention community podcast. With you, as always, are your hosts, Marina and Jesse Kidner. It is very exciting that Shore Leave has reached the 50th episode milestone, and we have a pretty exciting topic for it. We're going to talk about Star Trek The Cruise 3, which was recently completed. And to help us talk about it, we have a new guest, a supporter of the show and the fellow STLV attendee, Sherri Kidner. Let's take it away.
So I thought that let's swing back to the beginning a little bit and talk about how do you actually, book the cruise. This is like a small primer for those who are only now thinking about doing it. So how do you make the booking? Online, live agent? Is there something that's specifically specific to a Star Trek cruise? Is there something that they've changed around, done differently compared to the previous cruises? So whatever information that you have, go ahead.
So you can get information about the cruise by going to StarTrekTheCruise.com, and you can book it there. You can book it online, or you can get all the information you want and then call in and book. If you log in and go to book online, you will see it. It will give you an option of you can look at various decks, or this time they also have it organized by cabin class. You are not going to see all of the cabins that are available because they don't show everything online because they don't want people keeping track of what's left. So if you're looking at, say, deck 4 and you see only 10 cabins left, and the one you want isn't there, if you call in and ask, chances are they'll be able to get you close to where you wanted to be. Or if you're happy with what you see when you're online, just go ahead and book it online.
I booked on the last cruise. So Sherri, remember we were like Red Squad. There was something they had special, like, because we were return cruisers. And so like last year, if you book on the ship for the next year, it's like a special deal. So I did that last year for this year, and you kind of get your first pick of what's available on the ship as well. So this year I did that for next year as well, just so then you don't have to worry. You don't have to like get online and like guess what you're looking at. You can actually talk to them and they can tell you what the ship's about and what it looks like because they know more than we do about them. And but not everybody has that opportunity. So
last year they let us book. They opened up booking 3 weeks before the cruise. So they opened up booking for the 2019 3 weeks before the 2018 cruise. And so we were booked the first day it was open. My friend Amy and I both booked. But this year, they didn't open up booking until the first full day of cruising. They announced who was going to be on the boat the first night, and then the next day they opened up booking.
And from what you can see online, there's actually a difference in fare for those people who are past guests, those who are booking on board basically, and the ones who are brand new. I saw that there was like a nice little table that they made up. So that has been the case for all renewals. So if you were on first cruise rebooking for cruise 2, that was the same thing. You would get some sort of a discount because you were the returning guest, correct?
Yeah. And even the first year, if you booked like in Star Trek Las Vegas where they announced it, you got a special deal. And then if you booked after then, it's almost like they have 3 tiers, like first come people, and then people who've been with us before, and then, people who are signing up new.
Well, I suppose the next step is, the cruise leaves from Miami. So everybody, wherever you are in the world, you'll be first arriving to Miami. Do you recommend arriving early or arriving on the same day? Obviously by now there's some sort of like little cruise traditions that have formed over the last couple of years. Yes. So what's the scoop there?
I would tell you, and everyone, so just like the Star Trek Las Vegas group, I'm administrator on the cruise groups, and like I cringe when I hear someone say, I have booked my flight for the same day we're leaving. Because like this isn't like if you miss a flight, you get the next one. If you miss the ship, you have to go to literally Mexico to get to the next stop. So I always, you should show up at least a day early, just in case there's flight delay or something like that, so you don't have any issues. And then I always leave the day after the ship docks, just to give myself time to breathe and relax and recoup before I have to get back home.
But generally speaking, something that I was actually myself looking into, arriving early makes a whole lot of sense because, well, judging from what I can see online, and as I mentioned, these little traditions, people tend to actually start gathering together and doing some stuff already together right before the cruise actually happens. But is it possible to actually live on the same day? So like you came into the port, got out, got into the taxi and went straight into Miami International? Or is that you still recommend a little bit of a time between?
I flew out on the same day.
Yeah, it's very possible. You dock at the ungodly hour of 7 a.m. the day you arrive back to Miami, and they don't really kick you off. The last debarkation time is like noon, but there are people who you dock at 7. Once you're cleared to disembark, it's usually about 8 o'clock, and then the first people to leave are people who are taking their own luggage off. So I'm usually one of those. They take my luggage on. I can take my own luggage off, which means I can get off the ship earlier. It's really fast. The Uber and the taxi pickups are right there, as are the shuttles. So and it's not that far away from the airport. So I know people who left the ship at 8 and took a noon flight home. That was no big deal.
That makes sense. No, I'm personally sort of in practice of, once I'm done with suppose a convention, which I do a lot of conventions, I actually prefer to leave right after. So I'm actually thinking if I can sort of transpose that practice into, when I do the cruise next year. So speaking of like get-togethers and everything, that stuff that happens right before people get on board, is there specific hotels that sort of offer special rates, and then everybody sort of, gets together right there? Or is that something that just sort of naturally got organized and people actually spread out all over, around the Miami port, and things just happened naturally?
So Entertainment Cruise Productions has an official hotel they've reserved a block at, which has been in the past, it's been the Miami Airport Hilton. I don't know if it's going to stay that in the future, but it could be. And a lot of people do stay there. A lot of people stay close by and just stop in. Other people just stay closer to the port. But we've started, just the Facebook group, we started just gathering in the hotel bar the night before the cruise leaves. And the first year we did that, they had no warning. And it was a madhouse. And we had so much fun. The second year they had a day's warning. This year they had like 3 days warning because Amy and I got here on the 1st, and I talked to the assistant restaurant manager, and so he added staff. But it was still very busy and very crazy. But it was a lot of fun. The first year I called and told them, because when I started counting the number of people that were going to get together, I'm like, okay, that's going to be like 800 people. And I knew, I used to live in Florida, so I knew this hotel wasn't going to be able to accommodate 800 people in their lobby. So I tried. And then the second year, Sherri tried. And this year I tried again. And it just, I don't know what we can do, but it's so Marina, think of the masquerade on a Saturday night and then multiply that.
Yeah, well, you have to admit that Rio did get sort of, attitude adjustment in a certain way, and then they kind of got used to the fact that there is a huge crowd of trackies that's going to be there that 1 week of the year. So interesting that Hilton hasn't picked up on that yet. Let's see. We'll see what happens in the future. Who knows? Maybe they will start offering, discounts considering the size of the crowd or something. That would be would be interesting to see.
The good thing is, like, people have figured this out, that they're not going to get served. Basically you get there and you won't get served if you show up anytime after like 7 o'clock, because the get-togethers usually start around 6 as people start showing up. So I personally know people who just like go down the street, get their own drinks, and they just like, serve themselves, and keep the party lubricated that way, if you will, because it's. But like Sherri says, it is an absolute blast. I think the organized chaos is almost funner than if it was organized and we had bartenders everywhere because you can't help but meet other people, and you can't help but like get up, see who your friends are showing up and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's almost like Vegas in the way that, you know how when you start going to Vegas, you go like the day before the convention, and now we've got people who go the week before the convention. And so like we've got people showing up to Miami now 2 or 3 days early just so they can hang out before they hang out for a week on sea. So
it makes a whole lot of sense if you think about it. I mean, that's what tends to happen when you have a whole bunch of Trekkies showing up for whichever event. If it continues on, eventually you're going to have a crowd coming earlier and earlier and earlier. But that's the fun of it, isn't it? All right. So the next step, I suppose, is boarding. So everybody arrived, had their fun in the bar, and then the next morning, next afternoon, I suppose, actual boarding happens. So just a rough rundown. I don't want to make it too much of a sort of like a generic what happens when you do a Star Trek cruise or generally a cruise, but sort of like let's continue talking specifically about Cruise 3. So any advice, anything interesting that happens, anything that people might be on the lookout for if they do consider going to the cruise? What happens during boarding?
Well, I think when talking about boarding, especially for people who haven't been on before, we need to talk about the experience of actually getting on the boat and seeing everything, because you get on the boat and the girls are there are girls handing out the souvenir program, and they're in costume. You walk onto the boat into the atrium area, and it's all decorated in Star Trek. This year, the atrium was the tiki bar, and there were Star Trek totem poles. When you go to the elevators, they're not elevators anymore; they're turbo lifts, and they're completely decorated. And just as you walk around the boat, it's just amazing to see all the decorations. They really went out this time. They finally got the hint and turned Bar City into Quartz Bar. And they convert several of the restaurants to Star Trek style restaurants. And just to see all the decorations is pretty amazing.
That's extraordinary. How big is the ship in terms of number of decks, the Norwegian Jade? That's about 10 decks, 12 decks, something like that?
The Jade is 13 decks, and then a 14 on half the ship. There's a 14th deck, which is where like you can see where the bridge is and stuff like that. But let me get back to the decorations. Let me tell you real quick. It's not only that the ship is decked out, right? And that's an amazing sight in itself, because I've learned over the years what these ships do is, like, the ship that we board on, say on Thursday morning, has just gotten back to Miami on Thursday afternoon or something, right? So they literally have less than 24 hours to convert that from a passenger cruise.
It's less than that. They've gotten in at 7 a.m. They've kicked everyone off, and then we're boarding at 1 p.m.
Yeah, so
that's the turnaround.
So they've got a small amount of time to get all the equipment on, to get all the guests on, to get all the staff on. Somehow they managed to get the cruise line employees Star Trek themed T-shirts for the week. And so when we get there, they're wearing like Shore Leave Bar T-shirts at Shore Leave Bar. And they're wearing Quarks Bar shirts at Quarks Bar. And all the turbo lifts are done by the time you get there. All of the bars are set up. The restaurants are converted into, like, there's a Klingon Carnivorium, and there's Sandrine's that is their French restaurant. I mean, it is absolutely amazing how fast they do that. And as fast as they put it up, you know how it is, because that's as fast as it comes down the day we disembark, when they start taking the stuff down.
That is extraordinary.
It is absolutely a production, not only in that week, but in the way they set up and they tear down. It just amazes me how they can do that.
How quickly do they actually manage to board everyone? I mean, there's not that much time, I would think, between the actual boarding time and, by the time that the ship actually leaves port. So how long is it? Like, so we're talking 2,000 people, for instance, in case of Cruise 3. So would you happen to know how how quickly did they board everyone?
I can tell you that they start the first boarding around 11 a.m. So, and then the last group that gets on is like at 3 p.m. or so,
Wow.
right, Sherri? 3 or so?
That's about right, because muster is at 3, and so everyone has to be on board by that. And muster is the mandatory safety meeting. And then immediately after muster is the sail away party. So everyone's on board within a 4-hour period.
And
That is amazing.
There's boarding time. So, you know, when you get on a plane, you're grouped in numbers like 1 through 5.
Yeah.
Well, here you're grouped in numbers like 1 to 32 or something, you know. So
it's the same idea. You basically, when to show up realistically, so you board it without crowding the space.
It's very well organized.
Yes, but I will tell you, people will show up earlier than the pier opens. And it's hilarious. I saw it one year, because I'm not going to say it wasn't me, but I showed up early just to see if we could see the actors get on board. And you can, if you're there early enough, you can see the actors get on board first. But then it goes in groups, and like, you want to get group 1, because this isn't like a plane where you pay to get on first. You have to be there first to get group 1. So there's, I think, an unwritten competition of who can get on group 1, right? And when I got there, I was like group 17. When you register, when you check in, you tell them what time you think you want to get on, and they'll show you the available slots.
That makes it certainly more convenient than what happens with air travel. I thought it was actually like automatically assigned, so you actually can request specific time to board.
Yeah, but it's first come, first serve. So when you do your
it really is first come. Yeah.
When you do your check-in, it shows you what available times are. And I didn't check in till like the last minute, so my available time was like at 11 or something. You can start, like, I think the earliest is 10, but that just means you're going to get there at 10. It doesn't mean you're going to get on that ship at 10, because they have to get cleared from customs or from the port before they can even let people back on.
And here's the thing. Actually, I mean, whatever time you tell them when you're checking in, it doesn't matter. They give you your boarding times by when you showed up and went through security and filled out your paperwork.
Yeah.
And got your room card. That's why you get your boarding group.
Yeah, that time that you put in there is just so that they can maybe have a guess as to when the bulk of people are going to show up. I mean, they try to organize a group of Trekkies, which sometimes you know how that is. That's not going to work. But they try.
What is security like? I mean, is it something similar to what you see in the airport, or it's more painless, I was going to say?
It's more painless. I mean, you check your bags with either their ECP provides a shuttle from the hotel to the airport. If you want to pay for that, it's $15, or not to the airport, to the port. It's $15. And you give them your luggage there, and it shows up in your room later, or in front of your room later. Or if you go to the port yourself, you tip the porters, and they take your bags and get them on board, and then you just carry on your carry-on luggage like you would on a plane.
Yeah,
and it's similar security.
Yeah, I Ubered in, and I Uber in, and you just pull up. They pull up where the porters are. They look at your luggage tag, and they see what ship you're going to be on, and they take your bag to your ship. Because, Marina, all the bags, this is where it's a little different than, I mean, at the airport, all your bags go through this X-ray screen, right? And they're looking for incendiary devices and all that stuff. The ship is actually looking for that, but they're also looking for booze or contraband, anything you shouldn't bring on that they told you not to bring on. So everything gets X-rayed. So the more you give them to check in, it just makes your life easier. And because you can't, a big suitcase, it's that way on like a plane. On a plane, you can only bring in whatever fits through the X-ray machine. This is the same way. Like, you can only bring in a carry-on, and it's the same deal. Like, you can't bring bottles of water. I saw people try to go in there with bottles of beer because they think the vacation starts before you even get on the boat. They're not going to let you do that. You get in, and it's just like if you're going to traveling internationally. So, like, you fill out this form that says, are you sick? And if you were sick, and where'd you go, and that kind of stuff. And then that's when they give you your stateroom keys. and then you get on the ship, right? And then that this year, Sherri, I think this year that was a little easier. Like, they asked for my credit card when I did my check-in, so all they really had to do was give me my keys, and then I was off and running. I didn't even spend like 2 minutes at the desk checking in.
Yeah, and that's, for most people, it's that easy. If you want to have a cash account instead of using a credit card, it's a little more complicated, but yeah, it's usually that easy.
And then you're and Marina, that's the other thing that I think it's important, and I'm pretty sure all the cruise lines are the same way. Once you check in and you get your key, you can't do like Jesse does in Vegas and lose your key every day, because your key is your credit card. So it not only lets you in your room, it's how you charge meals. It's how they know who you are, so you can get into the complimentary buffets and all that stuff. So if you don't have your key, it's like you have no ID, or you're a man without a country until you go get another key. So you do see in the pictures, a lot of people have their keys in lanyards, and that's because you can't really do much of anything without it. Can't get off the ship, can't get on the ship. You just, that key is like almost as important as your phone.
Huh. Yeah, I noticed that. I saw in the pictures, and I was actually wondering that I practically didn't see anyone with like a small purse or any kind of bag. And I'm like, well, how curious. I mean, where would you put your wallet? And that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, if you literally can just walk around with a scan card and basically have it do, whatever, charging right on it, that is, okay, that's very interesting to know. It's be an interesting experience, actually, because I'm always attached to my purse.
Yeah.
So speaking of the ship, like, how easy is it to get around? I mean, it's a fairly sizable thing. And just generally, let's talk about like the cabin life. Again, judging from the pictures, this trip was a whole lot of fun, and I saw that people were decorating their doors, and just let's talk about this. I mean, it looks like, for a week, it's like, it's a world in itself, sort of like Vegas, but it's even more enclosed.
I like to say, and I know Sherri has probably has the way she looks at it, but I will tell you what this week reminds me of. It's like the second year, not the first year of college. It's the second year of college, when you can start going to all the fraternity parties, and like, it's dorm life and frat life all grouped into one. But even though we're geeks, we're popular. And so this, like, it is absolutely the most fun you'll ever have, just because you're with a bunch of people who all love the same thing. You're all struggling in these itty bitty, less than 200 square foot cabins that 2, 3, or 4 people are sharing at a time. And, you don't have to worry about drinking and driving, because guess what? You're not driving the boat. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I mean, I had the added advantage. I was in a solo cabin. So, because I paid extra to have the cabin to myself. But you don't spend a lot of time in your cabin. You're in there to sleep. You're in there to change. You're in there to, put makeup on if you're doing a costume. And that's it. The rest of the time you are out and hanging out about. However, when you are in your cabin, one of the really cool things that ECP has done is there are 2, sometimes 3 channels showing Star Trek.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah,
so you'll be getting ready, and you just turn on the TV, and there's Star Trek, there's old and new episodes.
Yeah, it's like they have a channel of movies and they have a channel of episodes. It is heaven.
Oh, that is just magnificent.
And I shared a cabin with one of my best friends, Kim, who goes to Vegas. We go to Vegas every year too, and part of that group. And we got a balcony because. Why not, right? And we had that special last year, so we got upgraded to a balcony. And I can't tell you, like, there was a couple of nights that we were gonna go out, and then we turned on the TV and it was Star Trek, and like, it was like midnight. We're like, well,
that's it.
Because like, between the ocean just moving in the night and the episode playing, you just get. It's almost like you're in a trance, because it's you just will never experience anything like that ever again.
Now, I am curious about that whole door decorating thing, because I know that I've seen it all through the last 3 years. This has been happening. Is that some sort of unofficial thing that just sprung up because people were having too much fun, or is it something that ECP came up with?
It started as a Sherri. The first year they had that contest, right? Didn't they announce that?
They had the contest, but we had already been talking about in our Facebook group about doing door decorations because I had seen people doing it before, and it's an easy way to find your door. And so I had, so there was already conversation about it. And then ECP said, okay, we're going to have a contest. And whether they had seen us talking about it or whether they came up with it on their own, I don't know. But there has been contests each year. The number of doors getting decorated hasn't been it's been going down per year, but it's still pretty impressive.
The decorations have been more elaborate, I will say.
This is true.
Yeah. Some of
what you have to think about is these doors are metal, and there are very specific rules. You can't use nails, for example. They don't even want you using tape. They want you to use whatever comes off. So people have to use magnetic clips, the little 3C, whatever it is, the little gummy stuff that comes off. 3M, all that. So you have to get real creative. And some of these decorations are just amazing. This year, somebody did a transporter. And I don't even know how they got all those decorations on there. And some of them have lights, but you can't plug anything in. So it had to be battery-operated lights.
Amazing.
And some people almost spend as much time on their doors as they have their cosplay, I would believe. So it's pretty neat.
No, you mentioned that obviously that makes it easier to recognize your own door. So that kind of brings it back to, I think, I asked something earlier, how easy is it to actually orient yourself? Can you actually get lost on the ship, or it's pretty much impossible because everything is laid out very clearly?
Well, Marina, you know how I am. So if it's during the daytime, I can find my room, but nighttime might be a little challenging. So I did not decorate my door this year, but somebody left a note on there the first night, and that's how I found my door ever since. I will tell you a story that I am not embarrassed to tell because I had fun, but I was in my room and friends of mine came and got me because I went to bed too early. And then a half hour later, they had to take me back to my room. And I think we knocked on 2 wrong doors because I couldn't find my drawer. And thankfully people know me and they're like, oh, it's just Jesse. He belongs in that room. And when they got to my room, Kim opens the door and I didn't recognize her because that's how gone I was. And it took me a minute to realize it was my room before they just poured me in my room and let me go. And I will tell you, if it wasn't for those little Post-it notes that people left on my door, I would not have found my room some nights because so it is easy to orient yourself. So NCL, and I don't know what Royal Caribbean will do, but NCL has this real cool thing. Their carpets have fish on them. And the fish swim towards the front of the boat, whatever. What's it called, Cheryl? There's Sherri. There's aft, and then there's
the boat.
Yeah. So the fish swim.
They swim to the front.
Huh?
They swim to the front of the boat.
Yeah. So
the front of the boat. Yes.
Fish are pointing towards the front, and your cabins are either in the aft, midship, port, or back of the boat, right? So if you kind of know where your cabin is, you'll find it, but the doors all look the same. The hallways all look the same. No matter what room you have, the doors are the same size, the same color, so you can get disoriented. The good thing is there's at least on the Jade, the atrium was a good central point because it was midship. So you knew if you were at the atrium, which way to go to get to wherever the theater was or wherever the restaurants were. And there's a lot of signage as well. But deck 8, which is where I was, is kind of a weird deck because there's got a restaurant in the middle of it. So the decks kind of make twists and turns that I remember if you start walking the wrong way on deck 8, you're walk around the whole ship before you find your room. So it's just when you book your room, you just figure out where it is and then figure out where the stairs are, and you should be able to find your room just fine. And for the ship next year, I don't think it's going to be that bad either. It looks like it's pretty easy to get around.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned next year has a big center area, just like the atrium, only bigger. And so I think that's going to make it even easier to find your way.
Yeah, I looked at the photos. It looks pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. Now, you mentioned the restaurant. So wanted to know, I mean, you said there was a themed one, like Klingon, I forgot the word.
Klingon
but can you talk Yes, thank you very much. So what, did they actually change the food around, or they just came up with fancy names sort of fitting the Star Trek universe? And
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just curious, how does that work? Because my understanding is that certain things are part of the fare. So the buffets and the breakfast and everything. Is everything included, or some of the restaurants you actually had to sort of basically do the usual, call in and book the spot, otherwise you can't get in?
So most of the restaurants on the boat are included in the fare. There are 4 or 5 custom restaurants that cost extra.
Okay.
There's a teppanyaki. There's the French restaurant that this year became Quark's Bistro. Last year it was Sandrine's. There's the Brazilian restaurant, which became the Klingon Carnivoria. And there's Cagney's Steakhouse. And then there's a sushi place. So they came up with, I don't know if they were actual different Star Trek menus or if they just relabeled some stuff. But they had Star Trek themed menus, and so you got to pick your Star Trek themed meals. And that was not just in the custom restaurants; that was in the big dining rooms too.
Yeah, the big dining rooms had the Star Trek themed menus, but like Cagney's didn't. Klingon Carnivorium did not have like Klingon meat. Like you weren't going to eat God in there, but they did have the cards. You know how, I don't know if you've been to a Brazilian restaurant, but how it works is they just keep bringing food around, right? And then there's cards that say I want more, or cards that say don't give me more right now. Well, those are Klingon cards, like that say feed me or don't feed me. So they do that, but teppanyaki didn't have Star Trek themed anything. Cagney's didn't. But it was just cool. I think the French restaurant did. I'm sorry?
I think the French restaurant did.
Oh, it did. Yes, it absolutely did, because it did last year when it was Sandrine's. So, because that's where Neelix's menu starts to pop up in there too, from that French episode he did.
It's just fun. You can realistically, come up with any kind of old, omelet, but the moment you put something Star Trek in the name, everybody just kind of goes,
Yeah.
So,
and they did have Star Trek themed drinks at all the bars. And some of the bars had different drinks than other bars. Quark's Bar had their own menu that they had sitting out. The Tiki Bar had a couple of custom drinks, and then there was drinks that were available at all the bars that were drinks of the day or different Star Trek themed drinks.
I'm actually curious if they managed to get any of the original quarks, meaning not the quarks, but the quarks that they used to have at the Star Trek Experience, because those recipes are available. So if somebody was clever enough to actually get those to NCL, that would be interesting to know if they actually used any.
I don't think they did. I know that the Warp Core Breach, they made something last year called Guinan's Guilty Pleasure, which was pretty much the same thing. But none of the others that I remember.
There was Ryza Moonshine, Andorian Ale, Blood Wine.
Picard High Tea.
Yeah, there's a High Tea, which is Long Island tea. There was a bunch. Ractigino, they had that. So it was.
But no Warp Core Breach.
Yeah,
Warp Core Breach.
They had, and if you go on, Marina, if you go on to groups, there's a couple of folks have posted those menus out there, so you can see everything that they had. Because they were smart enough to take pictures. I oddly enough, I don't know about you, Sherri, but I think because it was my, third year, I just didn't take a lot of pictures. I just let everyone else take the pictures, and I just steal them once I get back, unfortunately.
Well, I didn't take a lot of pictures, which is just as well, because on the way back, I accidentally left my tablet on the plane, and in order to make sure that it got remote wiped, I kicked off the remote wipe and accidentally wiped my own phone first. But everyone's posting pictures. As I had backed it up before I left, so I didn't lose that much. It was just a hassle. I had to go change passwords and everything. But you don't really, I mean, if you don't take pictures, other people will post pictures.
Yeah. And in relation to that, I actually have like two questions. One was somebody mentioned online that there were actually official photographers, just people randomly, I suppose, walking around taking photos because something gets put on the website after the cruise is all, finished. So it is somebody who's hired by ECP, I presume.
Well, ECP has their own photographers. So, and they do, the photographers, I can't tell you enough how wonderful ECP photographers are. And
they're awesome.
One of my not so great experiences was that this year the photo ops were done by the cruise line. They weren't done by ECP. So you didn't get the same quality of service as you would if ECP did it. Because you get, I think I've been on this cruise now 3 years, and I've gotten to know these people. And so it's like, even the ECP staff, they're so excited to see you again. And I'm sure it's the same for all the cruises they do, but I feel like we're family when we come back. And so, like, you know how in Vegas, the official photographers are walking around and they're just people with cameras? These people are looking for people having fun, and they're making eye contact with you, and they'll stop you to take pictures. Or if you tell them, take my picture, they'll take your picture. And I'm pretty sure you're going to see your picture online. So
that's fun.
Anxiously awaiting for their photographers to finish doing what they have to do to get all those pictures up, because those are going to be the best pictures you'll see. They've already put some up, and they've done some videos too. I've shown up on a couple of videos that one I remember, one I don't, but it's okay. It was in front of the pool. It was very exciting.
I didn't realize the videos were out yet. Yeah.
And they're
supposed to be out next week.
Yeah, and they are all over. They were at all the excursions, all the celebrity excursions, some of the non-celebrity excursions.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
so let me ask you another question then. Now, I know several of our mutual friends posted a lot of photos. And then there were some people that I know for a fact they were on the cruise, but I didn't see anything. So I'm assuming that Wi-Fi is probably something that you have to pay for. It's not included, which is why some people probably opted to just go, into a blackout for a week and then come back and start posting their stuff. So there is Wi-Fi, but you have to probably pay for it, right?
There's Wi-Fi, so I'll take this one just because I've studied it. I've done both. So the first year I paid for Wi-Fi as I go, and I ended up spending like $400.
Wow!
Because it's an expensive as you go plan. The second year I paid for a plan, and I went with it, and it was still like $200. So this year I said I'm not going to pay for internet. I'm going to disconnect for a week. And the only thing I used Wi-Fi for was they had an app that you can get for Norwegian specifically that at least lets you text room to room or call room to room if you're on their Wi-Fi. That costs $10 for the week, and that keeps you connected, which is the reason you'd want Wi-Fi, is to stay connected. So a lot of people didn't hear from me at all, which is unusual for me on the internet, not to hear from me first. But I got to keep up with all the folks that I needed, like Sherri I would keep up with, and my friends Adu and Mitchell, and then all of us. There's a group of us that went to Great Stirrup Cay. We call it Pizza Beach, where we get cabanas and all hang out and act crazy. So we had Pizza Beach, and we could all talk to each other. So it really is. I almost wish we had something like that in Vegas, where you could get rid of the world for a week and just be in Trek, which is what I opted to do this year, and it was absolutely fantastic. Out of the 3 years, this was my favorite because I had no care, and I didn't care, and I had no clue what happened in the world until I got back.
See, I admire that kind of attitude, but I have to admit that I don't think I will be able to do that. So once we start getting more information for the next year's cruise, I'm probably going to be opting for some sort of package because I don't see myself completely getting disconnected. I don't think I can do that. Let's, like you mentioned, all these trips. So let's talk about that. Every cruise has ports of call. I understand that it's been different for every single cruise done so far. So what did you see this year? Where did you stop?
Go ahead, Sherri. I talked enough.
I am not the best person to talk about this because after the first stop, I didn't get off the boat.
Really?
All right. So the first stop was in Great Stirrup Cay, which was a private island, and my friend and I went out there early, and we, hung out in the cabana until around 1, and then we went back to the boat just in time for a really bad storm. But getting up that early after having been up until 3 the night before, it might have been 2 that night, I decided that I wasn't doing that again, and I was going to sleep in. The other places that we stopped were in Jamaica, Falmouth, Jamaica, and
the Cayman Islands.
Well, the Grand Cayman? Was it Grand Cayman?
Yep.
I think it was Grand Cayman. And I'd been to Grand Cayman before, so I opted to stay on the boat and sleep for those days. But a lot of people, they left and they had a really good time. There were several really good excursions. I believe there was a rum factory tour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, there's 2 of those next year.
Oh, I happen to like rum a lot, so that's a wonderful news. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I went to on the first stop. Well, Sherri got off. Sherri and I had this plan to get into this cabana, and I didn't make it because I stayed up too late and opted not to get up there early. So when Sherri was on the way back, I was on the way there. That's right after that storm. So I hit Pizza Beach in the cabana, and I closed the island down. Me and a few people. It was right after the storm, and it was absolutely hilarious, and we had a great time. And then when we went to the Cayman Islands, we went to a resort that was there. It was called French Quarter Resort or something like that, and it was it's just a private resort on the reef. You could swim in the ocean, get drinks. It had lunch included, so we did that, and that was just a nice, relaxing time just to chill out. It was a little windy, so when we tried to get umbrellas, they kept flying away, so we gave up on umbrellas. You swam with fish, like you could see the fish, which scared me a little. The algae scared me a little because I couldn't see, but had a great time there. And in Jamaica, there are a lot of excursions, Marina. I think because Sherri and I have been there before, do all of them, this year. But
yeah.
In Jamaica, there was Dunes River Falls, which is a really tall waterfall that you climb. And there's like a group of 15 of you climbing this waterfall. Somehow I didn't die, but I was right behind Robert Picardo and the Na Visitor. That was one of the things they did. So we went up there and we climbed the waterfall, and then I did a bobsled. They had like a bobsled ride, which is like you drive your own bobsled so you could speed it up or slow it down. And that was a lot of fun too. I think the food I had in Jamaica was my favorite, to be quite honest. They had really good food. And I think that's the only place I really got to eat, because once you get on the port, you don't have a lot of time. I'm looking forward to extra time next year. But, you have maybe 4 to 6 hours. And some of the excursions, I mean, the underbelly of the excursions they're great excursions. They say they're going to be 6 hours, but the excursion may be, out of the 6 hours, you're spending 4 of them driving to the place they're taking you to.
So, that makes sense.
So you have to be careful. When they say short scenic ride, you really have to ask yourself what that means. Or a short, boat trip could mean you're spending another hour on a boat getting to another place. I've had that happen. But, I would say the one thing I didn't do this year that I definitely is next year is the zip lining. So I've lost a lot of weight, and everybody's heard this podcast knows I've been working a lot on that. So last year I got to parasail because I was finally under the weight limit. And this year I was going to zip line, but I just couldn't find the right place to do it. So next year I'm zip lining. And if there's the first year I swam with dolphins, and I got those pictures. So there's a lot of bucket item things that you can do on these cruises.
Yeah.
And I would recommend, if you've not been to these tropical ports before, that you look for your bucket list items and you get them done no matter what, because I don't think I'll ever have another opportunity to swim with dolphins unless it was on the cruise. Because, I lived in Oklahoma that had no ocean. And now I live in Georgia, where it's, not the best ocean. So, so.
Yeah. Now, speaking of excursions, now I know that there's something that those the celebrity-led ones that I organized by ACP. I'm assuming there's something that organized by the cruise line itself that you can sign up for. So, do you know like how easy it is to book? I mean, you said there's like a group of 15. So, how easy is it? Better to pick one that has the celebrity in it? Is it better to just literally not even bother with signing up with excursions, but just go and explore on your own for however many hours you actually have?
So let me give you my impression of celebrity excursions, and then let Sherri speak. I don't know if Sherri, you've done one or two, I think yourself, haven't you?
I've done multiple.
Yeah. So my impression of celebrity, so there's three types of excursions, Marina. There's ones that the cruise line offers, and those are easy to book because you just get on your online account with the cruise line. Once you have your reservation number, you pick it out and add it to a shopping cart, and boom, you've got an excursion. So that's simple. The celebrity excursions, you have to wait for ECP to send a note saying that we're booking these excursions, and it's first come, first served. So unless you're keeping an eye on your email, those may sell out. And then there are excursions that are available once you get to the port. They're independent companies that do excursions, and you can independently get yourself one or plan it ahead of time. But those excursions aren't guaranteed to get you back to your ship on time. So it's a lot of faith and a lot of hope that the folks who in car you're getting will get you back to your ship. So a lot of people do that as well because they're seasoned cruisers and they know who to talk to. So I would just get advice if you did that. Now, I did 2 celebrity excursions, and I would say that while they were fun, do not prepare yourself to spend 4 hours with the celebrity who's leading the excursion, because it's you and like 50 other people, and that person's got to like navigate all those people to be able to do one-on-one time with all of them. So some people feel cheated because they felt like they needed, and they break you up into groups. So you may be in a group where the celebrity isn't there for most of the trip until, you get your 10 minutes with him or her, right? So I would hate for people to think that when they book a celebrity excursion, it means that they're going to spend all this time, all this space time with the celebrity, because that's just not the way it works from my experience. Now, Sherri, I don't know if you had a similar experience.
So I've had it happen both ways. They made the mistake of letting us book as many excursions as we could for the 2018, and so I booked several celebrity excursions. And we went on one that was a tour of an animal sanctuary in Honduras. And it turns out that there was no limit to how many people could get booked for that one. And so there were 100 people booked.
Oh.
And the buses to take people are 20-person buses. And so that was with Connor Trenier for us. And he was on one of the other buses, and then he was walking around, because you walked around in your 20-person group, which on a normal excursion, that makes a lot of sense. For the celebrity excursion, that was too many people, and they should have never done that to him. However, we also paid for an excursion, a more deluxe version of an excursion for the Mayan ruins, and that was 20 people total. That was with Nana Visitor. And so that ended up being 2 vans of 10 people, and she rode in the van with one group there and rode in the van with one group back. And all 20 of us stayed with the same tour guide while we walked around the ruins. So, so your interaction is going to vary. I also did a snorkeling excursion on catamaran and with Vaughn Armstrong. And that, again, that was maybe 20, 30 people, because, and the trick is, if you want to do a celebrity excursion, pick an excursion where there's going to have to be a limit on the number of people. If you do one that's just a tour of a park, there's no limit to how many people can be doing that. But if it's on a catamaran, there's a maximum number of people that can go on that. And so you're going to have fewer people grabbing the celebrity's attention, and you're going to want to be doing other stuff too. You're not going to be trying to get the celebrities' attention the entire time, but you will get more interaction if it's a smaller group.
Now, speaking of interaction, again, this is based on what I'm seeing online. So many people excited and talking about it. Obviously, you get a lot of interaction on board itself between all the events and the parties and all those amazing activities. I mean, it looks like it's just a nonstop, party going on. It sounds like you actually have more chance to basically bumping into somebody in the turbo lift or on the pool deck or something and actually having a chat together or something like that. Now, it sounds like it's a far more intimate, so to speak, than at a large convention such as Vegas, right?
Yeah. Well, and the trick, especially on the boat, is, don't mob them and they won't hide.
Well, yeah.
And all the celebrities, they need to have their private time. And so sometimes you'll see them walking and you'll know, that they look busy. Leave them alone. And then other times, Nana and Denise came down to karaoke multiple nights. And Denise, she'd get up on stage and was singing with people. She's dancing in the front. Major interactions with everyone. It depends on the time and what's going on at the time. And also on the celebrities. Some celebrities, well, I was up more in the afternoons and evenings and late night. And so I saw the celebrities who were up for the late nights. There were other celebrities who were up in the morning and stuff. And so people would see them in the gym or they'd see them in the restaurants and stuff. So yeah, you'd bump into people in the turbo lift. And best thing to do is ask them how they're doing, how they're, are they enjoying the cruise, stuff like that. So
sounds fun. Now, continuing on with what's going on board, actually. Now, I don't want to go over like the entirety of the schedule, which I'm sure was amazing. Can you just touch upon like the absolute highlights for you during Cruise 3? So,
well, not to go over everything, but just a basic of your average day. If it was an at-sea day, you'd have panels during the day. You'd have a special evening show that you'd either be able to go to this was in the Stardust Theater, and you'd either be in the early show or the late show, and it was the same show. And then there was the evening party and then the late night party. And the shows were put on by the celebrities, and they were different every day. The evening parties were themed. There was a Risa night theme. There was a captain's gala. There was a costume party theme, and I've forgotten the other two.
There was that 60s party we did. I forgot.
Oh, the holodeck party. There's a themed holodeck party was the 60s party. And so you'd have people in costume for any of these, and all of them. And they had a band called Band 47, and that 47 is a specific reference. And they were great. They played a lot of a big variety of music. And then they also had a DJ who played some nights. And then on top of you'd have that party, and then for the late night, they'd have karaoke over in Bar City, or they'd have a dance party in one of the two big lounges. The night of Risa night, let me tell you, because this is my favorite. The Risa night, they had the band out by the pool, and I think I had a swim dress on because I was going to be in a costume, and I decided I wasn't doing the makeup. But Ken Mitchell and his friends were handing out these flyers for a rave up in 13 Forward for that evening, and that was going to be the late night party. And so the rave was amazing. It was Ken Mitchell and Mary Chifo were painting people's faces with Klingon coal makeup. And his friends came in and did electronic dance music. And I think that party went on for 3-4 hours. And it was just a blast. And the picture, when you go to the Star Trek The Cruise website and you see the picture that pops up with the guy holding the sign that says you should be here, that's from that party.
Wow, that is so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I got to say that rave was one of the things that like we didn't know was going to happen until it happened. Like when those signs started to pop out, we're like, we're having a rave. I've never been to a rave, so it was neat.
Now, just generally speaking, obviously I would say that probably primarily due to financial limitations. Is there a difference in the way the crowd is, the composition, like general age, type of fans, I suppose, like older fans, younger fans? I mean, it sounds like the vibe was amazing, but, like, did you notice based on you, like, say, comparing to STLV, for instance, is there a difference in the crowd?
No, I would say that the same diversity you see in any type of convention you saw on this ship. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that I can think of, right? So, if you want to go on this cruise, you can afford to go on this cruise. You don't have to get a cabin all by yourself and spend, $4,000 to go on a cruise. If you choose to, you do have payment plans. So like I go on a payment plan every year because there's no way I can pay for my fare all at once and make all my expenses. If you room with someone, it's cheap. If you have 3 or 4 in a room, that's more doable. I think what you see in the fan base is what you see, what's going on in the dynamics of Star Trek today, right? So we had a good number of millennials, and those are brought in by Discovery, right? We had a good number of TOS generation, a good number of TNG generation. And what's cool though is like, you would think that at a rave at midnight or 1 a.m. you would only see young kids, but no.
Oh,
everybody was there.
There were plenty of people older than me, and I was watching Star Trek early mornings in the 70s when I was a kid. So
yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And Marina, let me tell you something cool that they did this year as well. So they invited Gaze in Space this year to partner with them on the cruise. And Gaze in Space brought along with them, performers. They did some of the karaoke with the celebrities. They sponsored some of the trivia games and some of the dances. And they kind of took over Bar City a few nights. And it wasn't just like for this group of people. Like it was for everybody, and the performances were for everybody. And I've never seen, this is what I love about Star Trek, I've never seen so many different people do so many different things put on by different types of people, right? And so when you talk about the age differences and the generational differences and the differences in lifestyles, it's like it didn't make any difference. And that worried me a little bit when I first heard we were doing this, but like, it was absolutely fantastic. I can't even tell you how much IDIC I felt this year more than any other year.
I love it. I love it, and I can't wait to actually see all this for myself. Something else before we kind of start to wrap up here. Now, obviously, we have ECP and we have the actual cruise line. Now, ECP is chartering the entire ship. Is there like certain specifics that probably, kind of like you realize that that's what happens when you're actually on board, where it's like, okay, if you have a problem, it's ECP that you should be talking to versus, and say like, who's responsible for what? Is there sort of like a strict delineation?
Here's the cool thing, Marina, and I'm sorry, Sherri, I'm jumping in because I saw this.
You go ahead.
I will tell you what happened to me. I didn't lose. I misplaced my cell phone, right? And I absolutely was freaking out, not because it was on airplane mode, so I wasn't freaking out. It's because my doggone key was in there, and so I couldn't do anything. And I just saw someone from like ECP, and I said I lost my cell phone. And within like 5 minutes, I've got 4 people trying to find my phone, doing a security report, and it didn't matter who I reported it to, it was going to get taken care of. And I saw that not only with me, but ECP had themselves set up at the front desk in a hotel would be the front desk of the lobby, right? Maybe you would go to the front desk and say, this is wrong with my room, or that's where maybe you go and say, I want this excursion tomorrow. no matter who you went to, you got an answer. No one said, go, I can't help you, maybe try that one. They actually pointed you to other people, to where ECP and Norwegian Cruise Lines were like partnered really well, where I never saw where that one stopped and the other began. I mean, I knew that my cabin steward was a Norwegian Cruise Line, but he dropped off all my ECP materials, right? So, you know, it was a good partnership. And I don't think, aside of you can't go to Norwegian to book for the cruise next year because it's not on Norwegian, there was not much that you couldn't go to someone with and not get an answer.
Oh, it's wonderful to know.
Jesse just mentioned something that I think we need to point out.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you're in your, when you're on the boat, every day, you got a piece of swag left in your room from the cruise line. So this year we got a passport holder and a
United Federation of Planets.
That is so cool.
That's right.
That is
United Federation of Planets passport holder. We got we got our T-shirts, we got a nice hat, and we got a laptop bag.
That I use for work every day.
I am using that for work. Yeah.
That is brilliant. What a lovely gesture. I mean, they didn't tell you ahead of time that they were going to do that, right?
Well,
we knew because we'd been on before.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's fun.
It was not exciting as it was the first year. The first year, all that stuff came up. I mean, we all turned into like little kids on Christmas morning because we all would come out of our room. Did you see what's in your room?
Yeah.
And that is just so much fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's see. I'm trying to pick my brain and see if there's anything left as far as cruise. Now, obviously, you know, kind of swinging back to ports of call for a short period of time. Everybody's temporarily located in a different country. So when you go to the cruise, it's probably a good idea to take a passport with you, right?
They recommend
you should have your passport. I mean, it is possible to go without a passport, but it's very difficult and complicated. So have a passport.
Here's the passport. Okay, so this is what you'll read online as opposed to the reality of the situation, right? So let me just break it down. They say you should bring your passport. If not, you can bring your birth certificate and photo ID. And that's to get on and off the ship. And I can honestly say getting on and off the ship, as long as you had your ship card and a photo ID, was just fine. The problem becomes that if you've been on the internet at all, that if you happen to be that one ship who's not going to get to go on because it broke down or it had some kind of issue, then you're stuck in a foreign country without a passport. And that's the risk you take when you don't take your passport. And as well, I hate to say this, but there are crazy people sometimes that show up on the boat and get asked not to come back on the ship. If you happen to be one of those people, you're going to want a passport because you're going to have to find your own way home. They kick you out.
Yeah. And there is also the people who took the excursions where it wasn't a cruise line excursion and they didn't get you back in time.
Yeah.
And so you have to catch a plane to the next port or fly home.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're as much planners as I've seen on this ship, right? Because there was quite a bit of angst when we didn't get a schedule, right? So like as much as planners as I see, you better bring your passport because you got to plan for the unexpected. And Marina, you know, that's not just like going, you know, out of the country. That's like going out of state. You should just plan for the unexpected. And that way you don't have to worry about it. So,
yeah. Well, speaking of unexpected, something that happens very often when a lot of people especially from different countries get together, as we very well know from STLV, people get sick on board. Yep. So in this case, it's a little somewhat different situation because it's not like Las Vegas, you're still in the States. If you are an American, you can just go to an ER or something like that. What happens? I mean, I assume that there is medical staff traveling along on the ship.
There's a sick bay, and it's on Norwegian. On the Jade, it was on deck 4. So I came back with cruise cred, and I know Sherri got a little bit of cruise cred, and that's you can't just, it's just what it is, right? It's upper respiratory, recycled air around different people. Some of them don't wash their hands as much as they tell them to. It's just, if you're going to go on a convention, on a cruise, on a trip, just, you know, unless your immune system is super, super healthy, something might happen. So just be prepared. On the ship.
Well, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, mine, I blame mine completely on being up until 3 or 4 in the morning every day and drinking way, way, way too much because I had the drinks package and I made it work.
Yeah.
So that will also make you sick.
Yeah.
So.
But there is a sick bay, and you can take advantage of the sick bay. My roommate and I love my roommate so much because she brings a pharmacy with her. And anything I need is in her bag, and thank God, because if you have insurance, it doesn't matter. You're going to pay for using sick bay. And I have, every year, something has happened that someone's had to use sick bay. Like it could cost you $100 for a small sneeze. Someone got really sick and it cost them $2,000 just to like get an x-ray or something like that. You know, it's emergency room prices that you're going to pay emergency room prices for, and you're going to pay those before you get off the ship. So, and that's one of the reasons why you want to get insurance, which we haven't talked about, right? So, normally when you hear about insurance, you're like, trip insurance, who needs that? But you really want to think about it here, because there are the cruise is expensive enough as it is. If something happens during your cruise to cut your cruise off, you're going to want be able to recuperate some of those funds. And if you get sick, you're going to want to be able to afford to pay for that without, you know, having to pay crazy amounts of money. So what I will tell you about insurance for the cruise is like ECP does offer insurance through their website. That doesn't mean that's the only insurance you should get or you can go through. There are other insurance providers for cruises as well, depending on where you're from. If you're from the US, Canada, or Europe, Australia, New Zealand, we've got cruisers from all over. Just, you know, ask around and see what the best insurance is for you in your current situation, and take advantage of being able, if you get insurance within 30 days of booking, that's the best time to get it, because that's the best coverage you can get. If you wait after 30 days, then your insurance either becomes more or is less effective because you've waited a longer amount of time. And that's just the commercialism of the insurance business. There's not much we can do about that.
Well, that's very good to know. Well, anything else that we haven't touched upon that's more or less specific to Cruise 3? Because we've had both discussions generally about cruising and specific. I mean, is there something that sticks out besides the rave that happened during Cruise 3 that's like an absolute highlight of the trip for you?
So I will tell you, if you booked for Cruise 4, you got treated to Jason Isaacs and Mary Chiefo singing. What was that from Rocky Horror that they did?
It was the very first song from Rocky Horror, the Brad and Janet song.
Oh yeah, the name of it. The Damn It Janet song.
The Damn It Janet song. And it's funny because they come out and they start this, and someone started singing along or something, and Jason stopped the whole performance, went and yelled at him in the second row, then went back and they started all over again. It's very funny, and there's video of it in the Cruise 3 group, I think.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, and I know we mentioned it, but I think we need to mention it again. Band 47 is a band that I didn't know anything about until last year when they joined the cruise. And these people are fantastic. Like, they just became, I don't know if they even liked Star Trek before they got on board, but they became fans, they became family, they entertained and somehow managed to keep everyone entertained despite of what type of music you liked. They were personable, so when I saw them off the ship, they would like say, "You were the one dancing like a crazy person," and I'm like, "Yes."
Now, just out of curiosity, do they have a different name? Would they specifically name themselves for the cruise? Oh, so
if you look them on Facebook.
Coincidence that they're Band 47?
Yeah, if you look, especially if you look at my Facebook, you'll see it's one of the pages I like, and they are Band 47. That's who they were, and it's just amazing.
That is fun. Did someone tell them, that 47, hey, it's the Star Trek number?
I'm hoping somebody has mentioned it to them, because, we're on Portal 47, so I did see I did notice.
Oh, that is, because it's perfect. It's so fitting.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, speaking of Facebook groups, this is something that we brought up in other episodes, when you're preparing to do an event, regardless what it is, a land-based convention or a floating one. There's a whole bunch of groups that people can join. So you actually have the experience of the vets to fall upon and ask questions and poke around. So I know, Jesse, that you're an admin of several of them, correct?
Yeah, so I'm an admin of the Star Trek The Cruise 3 group and the Cruise 4 group. So what we tried, there was a Star Trek The Cruise group that I wasn't up to starting at all, but we did start breaking them up by sailings, because we just wanted people to be able to focus on planning and not so much getting wrapped around the nostalgia of the cruise they didn't go on before. So that's been really helpful. So the Cruise 3 group has now become like Remember When, which, after a con, you do that for a while. But the pictures are still coming up. The memories are still coming up. And then for folks going on Cruise 4, we've already got like almost 600 people in the Cruise 4 group. That ship's about 80% booked from what I heard. And a lot of people are joining the group. We even have ECP who's joined us in the group, and they've been throwing advice and helping us out.
As a matter of fact, I have to say that I was very impressed the way they handled the when the general booking opened, because that I'm the brand new attendee, so I was basically doing everything from scratch, and it was quite amazing. I mean, I had no problems whatsoever booking, thankfully. I mean, I went online, I got the exactly what I was looking for, and then I realized that a lot of people were actually having problems because the phones were crashing or something was happening, like glitching with the servers. And then I saw that there were people posting, they're like saying, I work for ECP, do not guys freak out, this is what you do, this is, and it was all extremely helpful and very organized and very professional. So extremely impressed by that. So so as you said, the current information is that about 80% of the cabins are gone, which is not so surprising. I mean, considering the explosion of interest that happened when they announced that Keith Mulgrew was going to be helming it, and then they added Shatner, and it's going to be 25th anniversary of Voyager celebration. It looks like a whole lot of new folk became attracted, and that's why the sales are going at quite an expedient pace.
It's amazing. I mean, the ship was 60% booked by people who are on Cruise 3. So, it's amazing. And then I will tell you, ECP does sit on those groups, and they are very helpful. And anyone who knows Jesse as a group admin, that I'm not a mean person, but I don't like a lot of complaining, a lot of talking down to people, a lot of all that negative stuff that you may see in other groups, you will not see in this group. And if you do, I take care of it. There's me and two other admins, James and Eric, and we work side by side with ECP. We don't get a free cruise, but we love them so much that we just want to keep things positive. I mean, there's constructive criticism that we talk about, and then there's just downright complaining, which is another reason why we keep the Cruise 4 group open to those who are interested or going on Cruise 4. If you're not going, then we ask you not to join so that we can keep it focused. So it's worked. And Sherri's been on all the groups, so she would tell me if I've gone crazy, and she has a couple of times.
So just to point out, the original Star Trek The Cruise group is still out there and is still active. Richard and Francis are the main admins for that group. And Richard, on his own, held drawings last year, just for different people who were going on the cruise and stuff, and that was on his own. It wasn't associated with anything, but it's just one of those things that people on the cruise have just started doing because they like everyone. There was people were giving out different crafts at the party and everything.
Oh, that's lovely.
So the original cruise group is still there. So if you're not going to go on Cruise 4, but you want to join the group to find out what's going on with that, you can join the main group.
Yeah. Now, just generally, let's start to kind of bring everything to a closure here. So as far as Cruise 4 is concerned, and I'm sure we will do a separate, like a primer episode at some point as we get much closer to it. Now, the biggest news was, of course, that the fact that Cruise 4 was being moved, both time-wise. It's no longer in January. It's going to be in March. And it's now with a different cruise line and a different ship, which happens to be a Voyager-class ship. Yay! So do either one of you have experience with the Royal Caribbean line? Or is it just the Norwegian that you've ever used before?
I'd never been on a boat. I'd never been on a ship until it became a Star Trek ship. So you got me there. I think it's going to be new for a lot of us next year.
I have not been on a Royal Caribbean ship. They had, on the boat this year, they had panels where they had some of the entertainment cruise production people come on and talk about plans for the Royal Caribbean ship. And they have some amazing plans for what they're going to do to the ship, as far as decorating and different ideas for hospitality and food-wise and drinks-wise. There is an open area in the middle of the ship that the Royal Caribbean calls the boardwalk. That's already been relabeled the promenade.
Very fitting.
Starting from there, they were planning to make use of the skating rink and the wave runner, and there was other stuff too, and I can't even remember. But they have a lot of plans. There's some of the cabins have virtual balconies, which means they have like a wall of TV screens. And Joey, who is the production manager, is trying very hard to get control of those screens. So we'll see what he comes up with for that.
That is interesting. I honestly, I am so excited about this, and we have more than a year to go.
I will tell you, if I'm going to tell you how I'm going to approach it, because like I purposely didn't go into any of those panels because I want to be shocked and surprised. And even with being on the same ship every year, I've been kind of shocked and surprised with the new additions. And so like, I just know it's going to be a new ship and it's going to be cool. So if you can control yourself, you will be in for the best, like, surprise and shock and awe moment of your life walking into this ship. And I can guarantee it just because it's happened every year that I've been on the Jade. And this ship is bigger. It's an extra day. So we get an extra day on the ship with all our peoples. It's bigger. So it'll be a bit of a bigger crowd, but it won't be unsurmountable. It'll only be like 3,500 instead of 2,500 or something like that. But
and they opened up a lot more solo cabins, so it won't be 3,500 because there were a lot of solo cabins. Yeah,
and and the spaces that they have available, I did take a look. If you go to Royal Caribbean, you can take a look at the deck plans and everything. And I was a little curious, and so their big theater will hold more people, and where we may have felt a little togetherness in some of the venues this year because there were so many of us in it. I think we'll have a little more elbow room next year in some of our spots, and so that's just more opportunity for more Star Trek stuff to happen. So
and awesome. The ports of call already have been listed, so it's quite a nice selection. I'm actually very very excited to stop by because there's going to be a stop in San Juan, which
it's where I was
job
born.
Related. I've had really fantastic. No, I have, through my job, I've done several projects, and I'm like, if it's somehow possible to actually take an excursion somewhere to Old San Juan, because I would actually love to see this, with my own eyes. It looks like such a gorgeous place.
I will tell you, like, I am not the expert on Puerto Rico at all, because I just was born there and moved away, but I was there this past May, and it was, I went to Old San Juan and to the places where my mom and my dad lived, and it is a beautiful island, and I'm looking forward to going back. And from what I can tell, that port stop is actually going to be longer than normal, so you'll hopefully get to do a lot more.
I'm looking forward to that. So for those who are interested, there are several stops. There's one stop in Dominican Republic at Punta Cana, there's San Juan, and then there are 2 stops in the Bahamas. So sounds like it's going to be a fantastic trip. let's see, what else should we? Oh yes, there's that new feature, that landing party. That's something that they no longer have the red squad, but they came up with the landing party idea. So either one of you wants to take it?
Yeah, I'll talk us through the landing party. So this year, what they did, it's an incentive program. So if you've got to listen up really close because it can get complicated. If you were on cruise 3 and you booked to go on cruise 4, you are allowed to become a landing party leader. And what that means is if you get people to sign up to go on cruise 4 who did not go on cruise 3, they can be part of your landing party. That cabin gets $100 of onboard credit on the cruise 4, and your cabin gets $100 credit for every cabin that you bring on board. So technically, right? So if you're a landing party leader and you've signed up 10 cabins, you've got $1,000 of onboard credit, and each one of those cabins has $100 for each of those cabins. So Sherri and I are both landing parties, and if you go on the cruise group 4, you will see quite a few landing party people, and just pick whoever you want because everybody gets something out of it anyhow. But don't miss out on getting credit because we can definitely hook you up with someone if you need it.
All right. Shall we mention anything else that we haven't touched upon? Because I'm pretty sure that we covered pretty much everything, right?
Yeah, we've been talking quite a while. So
I think we've covered a lot. Yeah.
I think Marina, we should think about just giving our contact information and closing out because I think people are going to get tired of listening to us.
Absolutely. So as Sherri mentioned earlier, all the information can be found online. The Star Trek, thecruise.com. So Sherri, where can people find you online?
Well, I am on Facebook as Sherri Kidner, and I am on Twitter as @Studio7609. I mostly on Facebook though, and you can always find me in the Facebook groups.
Yeah. All right, Jesse, where can people find you online?
And I am on Facebook as Jesse M. Okendo. I'm an administrator of the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas group, as well as Star Trek The Cruise group, Cruise 3 and 4. You can find me on Twitter at Outrageous Okendo, OUTRAJESOKENTO. And then, just hunt me down and at me, and I'll be happy to talk to you about anything. And Marina, what about you?
Same thing almost. You can find me on Facebook. My full name, Marina Kravchuk. Same thing. I'm one of the admins of the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group. And actually Facebook is probably the preferred way, message me, I'll check. I try to check that other folder every once in a while to see if anybody has any questions, people that I'm not friends with, unfortunately, yet. And then you can find me on Twitter, although not so much these days. Still, you can add me, please, at Dracorex. That's my handle, DRAKKOREX. And I am sort of on Instagram, same handle, but the best way to reach out to me is, of course, Facebook. So I guess that's it. That's our recap of Cruise 3. We will do a primer on Cruise 4 coming up probably in a year or so, I would think.
Give it's like 13 months away, so give us some time.
We've got time. So until then, keep on trekking, everybody.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Bye, everyone.